What's going on, you guys? Today we're going to be reacting to the unspeakable atrocities of Unit 731. This is by Shrouded Hand. Make sure you subscribe to him. He posts a lot of disturbing and scary content. Make sure you like this video, show support. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
Hello everybody, Shrouded Hand here, and today we're going to look at Unit 731, the research facility from hell.
Alright, bro, you're talking a little low for me.
Fire building isn't just about raw power, it's about strategy. As the world was heading towards one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century, the Second World War, Japan set its sights on global dominance. However, in terms of global conflict, they faced a difficult truth. They weren't going to be able to out-manufacture global giants like the USA or Great Britain, but Japan's strength wasn't in its production, it was in its innovation. Rather than striving to outproduce their enemies, they looked inwards to reduce their own casualties. They looked at other countries' past wars and analysed their casualty patterns. The numbers revealed a surprising truth. For every soldier lost in battle, many more, sometimes dozens more, were incapacitated by an unseen enemy, preventable diseases. In order to solve the problem, the 1930s saw the rise of several research facilities in Japan and in its occupied territories in Manchuria and China. Among them was Unit 731. On the surface, Unit 731 primarily focused on epidemic prevention and water purification. It studied diseases like cholera, which had caused significant casualties within the Japanese army. However, much of this was a facade. What was actually going on within Unit 731 was top secret. Within the walls of Unit 731, teams of doctors and researchers conducted gruesome experiments on innocent civilians. It was also where some of Japan's first bioweapons were constructed and tested.
Damn, so like, the Japanese and the German really weren't that different during World War II, because I think the Nazis were also doing the same shit as the Japanese. Like, I don't know what they're doing in Unit 731, but they said they're conducting experiments on innocent people. It sounds like some Nazi type shit to me, man.
It all started with the Japanese government looking over the vast amount of knowledge that their scientists held about diseases. They quickly realised that whilst it could be used for treatment and healing, there was also a great potential for weaponization. They came up with a strategy to deploy biological weapons on a mass scale.
Yep, Hiroshima.
As you can probably imagine, developing an efficient bioweapon isn't easy. Much more data was needed to be collected. This task was entrusted to General Shiro Ishii, the overseer of the Unit 731 facility in northern China. Under this man's leadership, widespread tests on the local population was initiated. The Japanese secret police were tasked with sourcing humans from nearby villages, prisoner of war camps and prisons.
You said the police were doing this?
Captured Chinese.
That's why I hate the police, man. They're supposed to protect us. I mean, this was in 1940, but still, man, fuck the police.
And Korean civilians, along with Soviet and Western prisoners of war, were confined to tiny cells and treated like guinea pigs. They were inhumanly referred to as maruta, meaning wooden logs, and they were subjected to some extremely horrific experiments.
So they're referred as human logs, like just an object. Hopefully they don't, like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but human logs is crazy. I know they're about to do some cutting, some like chopping up probably. That's what I think about when I hear logs.
Prisoners were deliberately infected with a range of diseases, including cholera and typhus and the bubonic plague. To determine the most efficient means of transmission, Japanese scientists exposed inmates to infected fleas, or they confined them in cells full of diseased rats. At times they would infect a single individual, then place them among a group of healthy inmates to track the spread of the disease. Some prisoners would be directly injected with pathogens. These injections would often consist of blended up human organs harvested from an infected individual.
Damn, man. So they just like experimenting with diseases and shit. And what he just said right now, blended up organs and like insides of people, blended up, put it in a syringe, and then you inject that shit in people. And not only that, these like insides of the person is infected with like disease. Bro, what?
Some prisoners were even given multiple infections simultaneously. Possibly this was because the Japanese wanted to cross-mutate pathogens. Venereal diseases were also under investigation. Inmates were forced to have sex with one another to monitor the transmission and progression of the disease.
Damn.
With all these diseases, some prisoners would receive experimental treatments, others were simply left to die. And even if a treatment was successful and a prisoner recovered, they would eventually be killed so that their bodies could be dissected and analysed. Sometimes they didn't even wait for a prisoner to die. They would be vivisected and their organs examined whilst they were still alive. This process allowed research.
Alive, bro? That's like my worst fear. Like, one of my worst fears is being like buried alive, chopped up alive, surgery being performed while I'm alive. Just like shit like that, why alive? Scares me because like no one should experience that. Like, fuck, man.
Just to study the effects of various diseases on internal organs at various stages and compare them with healthy samples.
Feinschmecker bringt Abwechslung.
Man, I love how like this happy ass, innocent ass cat comes up when this motherfucker's talking about people cutting up people's insides while they're still alive. Like, what?
The doctors at Unit 731 had a particular interest in the effects of diseases on unborn children.
Oh my god.
Any pregnancies that resulted from these forced copulation experiments weren't terminated, not immediately. They were allowed to gestate. Sometimes the fetuses would be cut from the womb whilst the patient was awake. Another type of...
The fetus would be cut from the womb while the pregnant woman is still alive. Like on some like Charles Manson type shit, bro. Fuck, man. That's so sad.
Research that was carried out at Unit 731 was the effects of chemical weapons. One ex-worker from the facility would later reveal that the facility had its own special gas chamber. This was a small room equipped with a chair and a glass wall.
Yeah, they on that Nazi shit, man. Gas chamber? Exactly, like they trying to... I think they took like inspiration from Nazis and shit. Like, they probably saw Hitler and they're probably like, oh my god, he's so powerful. Motherfuckers try to emulate that. It's just weirdos.
Prisoners would be restrained in the chair, and various types of poisonous gases such as mustard gas, phosgene or blister agents were released into the chamber. Adults, children and animals were frequently used in these tests. A scientist who worked at the facility recounted the ordeal of a young Russian mother and her daughter. He remembered the mother frantically trying to shield her daughter from breathing in the gas, and researchers safely on the outside of the chamber timing their convulsions. One of the gases tested in the chamber was phosgene. One former worker from Unit 731 recalls a particular time when one of the inmates survived the phosgene chamber. He said, as the gas spread, suffocating the victims, changes in pulse and other significant symptoms were observed and recorded until death occurred. One of the Maruta was a 68-year-old man. Earlier, he was injected with plague bacteria, but he didn't die. He was subjected to a phosgene test, but he survived. The military doctor injected air into his veins, but still he lived. So the doctor used a very thick needle and again injected air into his veins, but the man survived even that.
Damn. So you're saying this man, one of the 68-year-old man, injected one time plague bacteria, didn't die. Whatever this says, test, didn't die. Injected air into his veins, which is probably bad, still survived. And the doctor injected a thick needle again and injected air again in his veins, and he's still lived.
The doctors eventually killed this man by hanging him on.
Alright, bro. Man, that's so fucked up, man. He survived 4 experiments. That has to tell you something, man. Like, he needs to live, but nah, he's like, nah, fuck that. Let's hang him. Bro.
A tree. Other experiments involved testing flamethrowers. Prisoners were taken to a firing range and chained to wooden stakes at varying distances, and then subjected to terrifying burns as streams of fire were directed at them. Those fortunate enough to survive were returned to their cells. Some of these burn victims would receive treatments, others didn't. Ultimately, they would all be executed and then dissected, with every detail of their injuries meticulously documented. The same firing range was also used to test any number of conventional weapons, from grenades and bombs to various firearms. Again, live prisoners were used in these tests. Additionally, some prisoners were also used for bayonet practice, most notably during the training of the Youth Corps.
Bayonet practice, man, on innocent people? Man, you can't do that shit with a tree? Or like a fucking sandbag? Or like...
Some executions.
Nah. They doing this shit on purpose, obviously, I know.
Chillingly seem to have been driven by sheer amusement.
Yeah.
Seasoned soldiers at the facility who wanted to showcase their talents in swordsmanship allegedly beheaded prisoners as a demonstration of their skills. Dozens of inmates were forced into a kneeling position in front of a long trench, only to be methodically beheaded by the Japanese soldiers one by one. Over 3,000 individuals were employed at Unit 731. The scientists came from both military and civilian sectors. Leading Japanese universities sent their staff and students to contribute to these inhumane experiments. They often returned with samples which included organs or body parts preserved in large glass jars. One student would later recall, "I prepared many laboratory specimens of human origin to be preserved in formalin. Among them were heads, arms, legs, internal organs, and whole bodies. The jars stood in long rows. In some there were even children and infants."
What the fuck?
Ironically, the tremendous amount of death and suffering inflicted at Unit 731 created some of the best doctors in the world. The plan to...
Fuck no, man. I mean, yeah, man. Best doctors, but still, you don't need to be doing all that to be a... I don't know, man.
cut their own losses to a minimum really seemed to be working for the Japanese Empire. Japanese battlefield medicine was significantly more advanced than other countries. Despite these advances, as time went on, the tides of war shifted, and Japan found itself on the brink of defeat. The threat of a Soviet invasion grew imminent. The Japanese High Command anticipated that they would have to battle the Russians in Siberia, so this led to Unit 731 conducting frostbite research. As the name suggests, it involved inducing frostbite in prisoners. For instance, they would leave prisoners tied to a pole outside with their hands outstretched, then they would pour water over their hands. This was during the harsh Manchurian winter, when temperatures often plummeted below -20 degrees Celsius.
Oh my, -20? You putting fucking water on him? That shit's gonna instantly fucking get frozen, crystallized as soon as that shit. Oh,
Yes.
fuck.
Once the prisoner's hands had
You know what? They probably did too, man. As soon as they get frozen, they probably get a hammer and fucking smash that shit and break it.
turned black from the frostbite, scientists would attempt to reverse the damage by using experimental methods such as drugs, open flames, or hot water.
No, that shit
In
doesn't
one
work.
attempt to restore circulation to severely frostbitten hands, the application of hot water caused all the flesh to peel away from the bone. The prisoner was left untreated. The scientists wanted to see how long it would take for gangrene to develop.
Gangrene?
As the research into frostbite treatment progressed, so did their research into weaponized diseases. It remains the unit's top priority throughout its existence. As the war raged on, research progressed rapidly, leading to field tests in Manchurian villages. Research teams from Unit 731 would visit a village, then release pathogens among the unsuspecting villagers. They might infect the water supply, or trade them items infested with lice carrying bubonic plague. One account even mentions scientists giving sweets laced with diseases to local children.
Fuck.
Residents of these
Man.
villages had no means to protect themselves against outbreaks of typhus or bubonic plague. This region of China was relatively undeveloped during this period. As a result, when researchers returned to certain villages after conducting their tests, they often found them deserted with bodies strewn everywhere. After typhoid and cholera cultures were introduced into the water in the Zhejiang province, over 1,700 Japanese soldiers became infected and died. Incidents like these
I mean, never mind. It's just a fucked up situation. Like, you know, there's probably some like Japanese soldiers who actually like, all right, man. Like, they don't want to be there. But it's just a fucked up situation, just war. I mean, it needs to be done, I guess, to gain peace. But like, without war, or yeah, without this war, there probably wouldn't be fucking experiments in this unit experimenting on innocent people, kids. I don't know, man. It's complicated.
weren't viewed as
Fuck.
setbacks, but rather as sources of valuable data. The fact that these were Japanese soldiers was completely disregarded. In 1944, Japan attempted to conduct its first major bioweapon attack on US forces. It was a devious move, given that every other faction in World War II adhered to the Geneva Convention Treaty prohibiting the development and use of biological weapons.
You think the Japanese give a fuck about that? No. They doing all this shit to kids, women, innocent people, men, everyone, infants. You think they if they doing that shit? You think they give a fuck about the Geneva Convention and like the laws of war? No, bro.
A submarine loaded with mutated pathogens and infected lice was dispatched to unleash its deadly cargo on the American forces. However, before it got a chance to do this, the submarine was sank in the Pacific. In 1945, Japan planned another major bioweapon attack. This plan was called Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. In the face of losing the war, Japan made a last-ditch effort to turn the tide in their favour. Their plan involved deploying submarine-based aircraft known as Fugos or fire balloons. These would release bombs containing plague-infested fleas over Southern California. The idea was to spread disease
Not Southern California. Come on, man.
among the civilian population and create panic and disruption.
Digitalisiere deinen Betrieb.
You know, that's where I'm from, Southern California. That's why it's probably all fucked up now, huh? Motherfuckers release like fucking diseases over there, and we probably evoluted into being all mentally fucked up.
After the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese surrendered and Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night was scrapped. Many years after the war, some of the surviving researchers and staff from the facility, burdened by their guilt, confessed to the atrocities that they'd seen and committed at Unit 731. In their confessions, some still referred to the prisoners as Maruta logs. The Japanese government initially tried to downplay these confessions, but in the late 80s, a large number of specimens such as drilled human skulls and organs in glass jars was discovered in Tokyo. These discoveries were attributed to Unit 731. Until then, the Japanese government were maintaining the narrative that such a facility never existed. Even today, Japanese officials are very reluctant to discuss Unit 731.
They trying to keep that shit under the radar to protect their reputation. Nah, y'all did that shit. Y'all fucked up.
As for the men who chose to confess after working there, almost every account mentions vivisections, living, conscious prisoners cut open without any anesthesia.
Oh my god.
One
That's
man, who was a medical assistant at the unit and who insisted on remaining anonymous, recalled his first vivisection on a living prisoner. The fellow knew that it was over for him, so he didn't struggle when we led him into the room and tied him down. But when I picked up the scalpel, that's when he began screaming.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I cut him open from the chest to the stomach, and his face was all twisted in agony. He made this unimaginable sound. He was screaming so horribly, but then finally he stopped.
Fuck.
Another account recalls a young pregnant Chinese woman who, after being sedated with chloroform, woke up as she was being dissected and her organs were being removed and placed into glass jars. The terrified woman pleaded with the scientists to spare her unborn child. More chloroform was administered and she slipped back into unconsciousness. She bled to death shortly afterwards.
Fuck that.
There aren't any first-hand testimonies from the prisoners. Being sent to Unit 731 meant certain death. Not a single inmate made it out alive. It's safe to assume that those that did confess didn't reveal everything that they'd seen. Some of the things that went on there will never be revealed. Things like vivisections conducted on living children and babies.
On babies and children, yeah, they did that shit.
These are conveniently missing from the majority of confessions. Although in a booklet released in Japan following a major exhibition on Unit 731, there's a particularly chilling piece of advice. A seemingly handy tip directed at new doctors in the facility. It regards to experimenting on a 3-day-old baby. It says, usually the hands of a 3-day-old infant are clenched into a fist, but by sticking a needle...
Just look at that. Look at this, man. Look at how small the baby's hand is. The cheeks, the hand. It's so cute. You want to fucking do some crazy shit to it.
in the middle finger.
Oh, y'all going to hell.
The baby's arms could be kept straight to make the experiment easier. The individuals responsible for these horrific experiments never faced justice. After World War II...
Oh, they will. They will. They definitely will in the afterlife.
Many scientists were intercepted by the USA, not only because the knowledge they'd gained at Unit 731 was invaluable, but also because of the fear of what would have happened if their research fell into Soviet hands. Many of the researchers went on to live long and prosperous lives, often achieving notable successes in politics, academia, and medicine. As for their research, it's highly probable that detailed accounts of their experiments and the results of their bioweapon tests remain locked away in some archives within the USA. It's very doubtful that these records will ever be publicly disclosed.
Never.
And so, that's the story of...
That's the story of 731. Shit's fucked up, man. That shit is fucked up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, though. Peace.